Hello, Theiss. I quite enjoyed the beginning of the story, my dear. I hope to hear more of Good Beau's story soon. I'm currently sitting in a near-empty train car on my way to Vienna, and I've just finished listening to your tape. You've no idea how much of a relief it is to hear from you, darling. I'm so happy to hear you two have decided to follow your passion, even though it may seem foolish. Doing something you enjoy is so much more fulfilling than watching the opportunity slip through your fingers. Though, I don't fancy fending off the neighborhood with a stick for access to the garage when I get back. I intend to be in New Zealand when you get this, Theiss dear. The address is with the tape, as it was last time. I'm hoping to see the beach like you did in California. I could do with some coastline air. I saw a cat on the way to the station today. It reminded me of you. So angry, yet so full of love. When I settle down, I should think I would like to own a cat. At the very least, I shall keep an eye out for more while traveling. Best wishes from me.
Episode 2. Music over rolling hills. The notes around me ring. Hello, Mera. I've decided to respond again, if you hadn't noticed already. Don't worry, it's shocking for both of us. At first, I couldn't come up with an explanation as to why I would want to even think about talking to you again. It was bad enough I deigned a response to the first one, and I fear that may have been a moment of brief insanity. And yet, here I am again. I just seem incapable of, well, not responding. I think it's my brain, subconsciously trying to maintain our deeper connection. But I won't let myself go where you are, out of spite. So, I respond instead. A foolish thing to do, really. If you must know, I'm in Ireland currently. Luscanor, right by the cliffs of Moher. Yet again, I find myself right by the sea. The view is a little more green and grey than it is bright and sunny, but there's something invigorating about being right on the cliff tops, looking out into the wide Atlantic blue. I've just come from spending some time in Dublin. I was able to catch the Moonlight Sunrise concert we were looking into while I was there. I remember seeing some of their concerts back when they were just starting. Do you remember that little one in Quebec, when the band hopped off the stage to play in the middle of the crowd? To think of all their shows we've seen since they started and how much they've grown. I managed to snag a VIP ticket this time, but the band was disappointed you weren't there for the meet and greet and photos. Yeah, anyways, back to the matter at hand. Cliffs of Moher, Ireland. Right. The region is good for quiet studying. I like sitting on the cliff top, the ocean in view, with my notes and books all scattered about. However, the area itself isn't filled with anything beyond the usual English, I'm afraid. Ireland is, and always has been, a beautiful place of history and culture. Everyone here is so lively, and it seems, from what I've been able to find, that it has always been this way. But how people express their liveliness, this is where greatness lies. One of such ways that I had the chance to talk to a local about was Beltane, the holiday celebrating the beginning of summer. Bonfires, dancing, cattle, and good food. This holiday, though much less frequently celebrated now than in older Ireland, is an example of spirit in a country that remains from days of old. Culture that remains, despite how a country and a group of people change, is just brilliant. As countries grow, things affect the way people interact and traditions they have. So, traditions like Beltane always excite me to learn about, because, despite the outside influence, the home of the tradition decided it was important enough to hold on to. Beltane isn't common though, and it's not the only thing not common in the country. The native language of the land, I believe it's called Gaelic? 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 Is not commonly spoken anymore. Once, maybe, long, long ago, before the English took over the free home of rolling countrysides and proud people. However, as with most colonizers, the English wanted to make the Irish people the perfect subjects. Gaelic fell out of use, save for some nooks and more secluded towns away from major city hubs. Though the people may not have forgotten their roots, they were not as important in the eyes of the kingdom the country had joined, so they were brushed aside, and, over time, it faded from the front lines. But, in time, Ireland won back independence from Great Britain. The first Irish president, Douglas Hyde, made moves at the very beginning of the country's new emancipation to revive parts of the original culture, free of English influence, starting with mandating teaching the native tongue in schools. Now, I would think this is a great idea. Indeed, it seems to offer younger generations a chance to learn the language and help it survive, but while a steady 10% speak the language, that number is, as I said, steady. People may speak it in their home or on the streets, but the number is not incredibly large. To top it off, that language is primarily in the cities where it has been grown artificially, as opposed to its most native home of Gaeltacht. The language will most definitely survive, well into the future, due to the efforts taken to keep it as such, but it is now a textbook language. Though it may be close to how it once was, it isn't exactly how it was intended to be. The language has been incubated and contained in the greater city areas, where it can be learned and taught. This feels like teaching traditional French in a more rural town in Louisiana. While the language may be picked up, it's going to be vastly different than what's spoken in the French Quarter of New Orleans. I feel as though this information gives me a lot to think about. I don't know whether this situation would be true everywhere globally. The implementation of local language into the school system still seems like a good way to prevent a language from going extinct. Yet, if it isn't working here, would it have success elsewhere? My passion may only be about learning and studying, but if there end up being no languages to study, what's the point? At the point I no longer have anything to be passionate about in the field, so to speak, would I just go home? What about you? Can you imagine a world where there was only one language? No necessary study of the difference in linguistics, never having to decrypt old text, never being able to appreciate the sound of foreign tongue or how accents develop or anything. I think that would be a bit of a sad world, not having verbal differences. Easier, maybe, not having language die, but most definitely more sad. I'm going to sit and think for a while. There is, in light of me talking, I have realized, a lot to think about, after all. I found another song you can listen to in the meantime. I suppose I owe you more story, huh? No, I don't know what this information will present, particularly in the future. The suspension of language in Ireland, I mean, and what it could mean for the future efforts to preserve language. But that's future me's problem, and right now, I'm gonna go tell a story and appreciate the countryside. Okay then. So, Beau has just left her home for the first time in her life. She has said her farewells to her family and is on her way to explore the world, traveling the paths traders used to begin her journey. Or she would be if she hadn't gotten hopelessly lost. She hadn't meant to get lost, you see. It's just the fact that she had never gone further than the village boundary and didn't exactly know where she was going or precisely how to get there. So, our vigilant and intrepid hero wandered for hours upon hours until she wandered into a sheltered clearing, and, upon seeing clear skies in every direction all day, decided to take shelter in the clearing for the night. As someone who has camped before, many a time, I can assure you this is not sound advice. However, for the sake of storytelling and fantasy realms, yada yada, let's just assume all is well. But, except, what Beau failed to realize was that she had wandered into what can be recognized as a fairy ring. Now, fairy rings can be dangerous for a large number of reasons to a large number of people. The effects of the ring depend on the fae, you see. Curses, simple spells, taking most precious things from those who enter them. On the least dangerous end, just turning your hair yellow for a week. And while this ring had some of the more gentle effects, it was not harmless. When Bo woke up, she found herself still untouched within the ring. She went on alert immediately, however, as she could tell right away that the world around her was not as she had left it when she fell asleep. Not just one night had passed while our hero was at rest. You know the story of Rip Van Winkle? The situation was much the same. Bo fell asleep one night and woke up in a time not her own. There were more flowers surrounding the clearing, the trees much taller, the birds' song nearby still sweet but different than how it had been when she had been walking in the woods prior to her rest. Bo sprung into action, sword drawn and shield raised. But no one jumped out. Nothing was triggered. It was just a girl in a clearing, swinging a sword around like a madman amongst the flowers. "What has been done here?" Bo yelled. "Why have the trees grown? Birds, why do you change your song?" She got no response, save said birds taking flight and fleeing the mad, yelling girl. Our hero walked forwards, taking gentle step by gentle step, and exited the ring. Unbeknownst to her, the edges of the ring faded as she left, having served its purpose. Bo moved through the woods, quickly but cautiously, as she rushed towards her destination of the nearby town. She feared if she dawdled, whatever had played that, prank, she supposed, may decide to fool her in a less, would Bo assume to be, at least, harmless trick on her. But soon enough, much to her relief, she reached the crossroads. She then, miraculously seeing her previous navigational luck, remembered she had been told would lead her towards a port town in one direction and a popular trading spot in another. And indeed, there appeared to be a signpost with signs pointing in two directions, as well as 3 other signs pointing various ways other than the first 2 she saw. "Oh, mother," muttered Bo, forgetting her polite upbringing in favor of expressing her current feelings, which were, "oh, mother." Bo was not prepared for this. First the prank with the clearing, now this, other prank with the signs. She was just about ready to camp out all night and catch the culprit red-handed. But Bo remembered what her uncle had taught her about being out in the world, and how the best course of action in mostly harmless, uncomfortable situations was to leave and go. So she did. Bo picked a path and wandered further into the wood. She was forced to pick a path at random, as all of the signs had been written in some garbled, made-up language. How bothersome, she thought, to have all this trouble gone through just to get in my way and leave me on my own at some strange road and confused. The heroine followed the path for as long as it went on without passing any towns or villages. She had been going for maybe 5 miles before she crossed paths with anyone. She paused at an intersection in the path. Another well-paved road crossed the one she was on, going in a perpendicular direction, in order to take an apple from her knapsack, when she saw another traveler headed her way. Grabbing her food, she slung the sack over her shoulder, waited a moment, then resumed walking at a comfortable pace matched with the other on the path. They nodded once to each other, and walked in a comfortable silence, appreciating the company of another on the wide empty road, but not wishing to engage beyond walking. And walk they did. 1 hour of walking turned into 2, then 3. Once they reached the 3.5-hour mark, they stopped to rest their feet. Bo offered some water from her canteen to the stranger, and received another nod and a grunt that she took as thanks. Then they continued to walk, and walk, and walk some more, until, for the first time in her life, Bortro Edgar saw a town beyond her own, filled with new people to meet, stands full of new foods to try. And, at the horizon, she could see the sea. "I've made it," she whispered in awe. Though Bo may not have gone far from home in a technical manner, she had never been on a journey like this. "Thank you for your companionship," she said to the person she had been walking with. It made the travel more enjoyable. They responded in a tongue she did not recognize, but tipped their hat to her and moved further into the city. Bo did the same. There was a new world for her to explore, after all, and she had to get started before any longer. I'll leave the story here today. Next time, I think, will be where our lovely Bo runs into some real trouble. I hope you've enjoyed hearing it. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about my travels, too. Well, if you still, bother to keep in touch, I'll be looking forward to your next tape, Mera. Love, me.
Around the World from Me to You is brought to you as my personal project. The voice of Theiss is, well, me. The voice of Mera is Caroline Kondak. Music is Embrace, Chill by Sapphiros, and Free With You by Danlsan. If you have interest in dying languages, I encourage you to look into them. There is a lot of history there, and it can be quite interesting to learn about. Keep it up.